Boop 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 doo doo doo. Let's find some music. Oh, really? Pandora's been running this entire time in the background? Alright, that's fine, Pandora. Whatever you want to do. Whatever you want to do. I don't even care. You know what? It's fine. Let's get some BG music going on in the background here. Just keep it at 11. You guys can hear me? Hello? I'm back. Make sure the music is not too loud. What is even this from? Panzer Dragoon Orta. Oh, Panzer Dragoon. All right. Okay, let's get Skype back up. And go to the cameras. Boom. All right. I'm gonna drink out of my red mug. Okay. We have a couple of after-post questions. I don't know if you guys had to address anything from the chat room you saw going on during the show, but go for it right now. No holds barred. I could have said that before the show, but I wouldn't even know that so many shots would be fired tonight.
There was no shots fired.
No shots fired?
Nope.
Okay. Let's see real quick. Let me grab the other ones. We have some post-show questions. We have a couple more in Skype. So let's see. So Soul Stealer. Even though there's an umlaut over the E, so that's totally not how it's pronounced. But of Dark Sorrow EU asks with 5.4 in sight, what fights are you guys looking forward to and why? And will either of you be able to stream in the near future? Sheena, go.
If you catch the show from the beginning, you'll see why I don't stream.
Yeah,
my internet sucks, and I think it would be very distracting if I was trying to raid and then having to fix it crashing constantly. So,
yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm not planning to stream, but I might prep some stuff and put it on YouTube.
She might be back on Final Boss too, so that's fine. I mean, you can catch her here.
And then as for the fights that I'm looking forward to, I mean, I really only got to see the heroic versions of the fight on 10-man, so it's a little hard to tell for sure yet until I can get some heroic 25 experience. Yeah. But some of them, like Paragon's the Claxi, looks like it's going to be a really cool fight. Not a big fan of the fact that the bosses that you have to fight will come out in a random order every week, because really it does make a pretty big difference who's out at what time on that fight. But overall, just the idea of some of their abilities and just a progressive console fight like that, it seems like it's going to be fun to do on 25 heroic.
Yeah, definitely. I have very little experience in the PTR so far besides watching videos and whatnot, so I'm just excited to get in there and start working on it. I know we have people that work on all the strats and stuff for Crisp, so we'll definitely see. They'll have a lot of work done for them, but I'm just going to show up and hit things and not AoE.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's close that. Do you have the next question pulled up, Jenny? I'm closing all these windows.
Yeah, I have it right here. I wasn't sure if you want to ask Spark about that.
Oh yeah, he could chime in whenever. You don't have to be asked. Definitely take it away.
Well, I think generally the fights. At first, I was really excited and pumped, and then we kind of tested heroic, and I just felt like I was doing the same fight, just with different numbers.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel as, like, it felt too rushed in some way. Like, I didn't feel the difference of heroic to normal mode as I did more in Throne of Thunder, which I didn't really like. So I'd much rather see a bit more effort put into making the fights a bit different on heroic and a bit harder. Some of it seemed a bit too simple, but it always does. And yeah, I'm a bit scared and a bit skeptical, and especially because they're pushing it in like a week or two. So yeah, I just hope for the better, but I'm scared that it might not be their greatest instance.
Definitely.
You see, you didn't really feel the curve, the swap.
I didn't
over
feel
very
the
much?
difference of heroic and normal mode. Like you know, when you did heroic Throne of Thunder, it just felt different to some extent, and it was like doing normal mode, just a bit different numbers, and it wasn't that hard. And most heroic fights we tested was pretty easy. I mean, it's hard to say what it was. I mean, they might be undertuned and stuff, but I'm just scared at how PTR looked compared to how fast they're gonna push it out. That's what I mean. I hope it's gonna be better, and I hope I'm gonna be pleasantly surprised. But we'll see. I mean,
Do you guys want to put down some money on how long it'll take you in weeks to clear everything?
that's a good question.
Their comments.
It was
We don't
5.
see Row 25 sites, so it's hard to
Yeah.
get an idea.
I'm a bit
Yeah.
scared though, because there's two things to it as well. There's the thing that the next expansion is the next raid instance, and the next expansion aren't gonna come anytime soon. So either we're gonna farm this instance for like 10 months, or they're gonna make it so hard that you're gonna go through it in like 2 months just to extend the content. That's what I'm scared about.
I don't know. I think we're gonna get something very different with Blizzard. That we're gonna get the new expansion. I think in the spring. So I think we'll be in this tier for 6 months. 6 months.
It's still a long time.
I mean, it's gonna be a long time, but every end of expansion is kind of a long grind. But we're not gonna see a day shy of a year like we do with ICC. That's not gonna happen.
Yeah, I don't hope so at least.
Yeah, we're getting an expansion in like March, April. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be different because it's like springtime for Blizzard. But they can't hold this tier for 8-10 months. It's not gonna happen. No.
Yeah, I think with how they're rushing this tier content to make sure it
Yeah,
comes
also-
out now, it's not gonna be something where they're gonna get a new expansion in November or something when they've done traditionally.
Yeah.
They're gonna have 13 months of one instance. If
Yeah.
anything, they'll add some extra content if the expansion isn't ready.
Yeah.
But I doubt that's gonna happen again.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also pushing a bit too fast, I feel like. You don't really get many breaks between, you barely get your best in slot gear and stuff.
Well, that's
Uh,
something that I've
It's
always,
overwhelming.
I think they're pushing a bit too hard.
and that's
People
weird.
say...
Oh, go ahead.
No, it's just about people that say that, yeah, there isn't much to do between and we're pushing out faster, but I don't really think it helps, like, keeping subs and stuff to push it like this. I mean, most people didn't even kill Shard before the next instance was out. That was also because of the gating system, but even now, I mean, you barely have your best in slot and stuff. I don't know. Just feels really rushed, and I think people are gonna burn out, especially in top guilds. Like, I can already see it in Method. There's a lot of people burning out, and over
Yeah.
summer and PTR, and it feels like we have been progressing because you still play PTR and you play farm rates and stuff like that. It just feels like never ending and no breaks, and I think it's gonna hurt a bit.
Well, there's
that.
Yeah.
there's a difference in that opinion. It's so weird, and it's different hearing it from you guys too, because I know there's a weird separation when you have to do what you guys do, or choose to do what you guys do technically to be ahead of the pack. Is you don't just raid and be over with it with one character. You have multiple characters, you have multiple raids. Eventually, you have so much farming to do to prep for the next raid, and there's a weird balance where like ICC and like Dragon Soul lasted too long, or you farmed it for a long time, but then they want to push out content now in like 4 to 5 month blocks where it feels too fast, right? And I don't know if that's the problem with Thunderforged gear and your BIS list doesn't exist for so long because of the RNG involved, but it's interesting that now that they have more content out, which we always wanted, we're like, whoa, Blizzard! Whoa! You know, it's interesting. I don't know. But I think that we're going to see the 1 year like sub thing come back for Blizzard, the annual pass at BlizzCon this year. The beta will probably start like a month later, like right after the holiday season, and then we'll have the expansion 2 to 3 months after that. So I'm thinking March,
It's a
April.
short beta.
Well, yeah, 2 months. I think for a beta, 2-3 months. I don't think that's.
I don't remember exactly how long the month beta was, but I think it was from sometime in maybe July to November. Or no,
Yeah,
it's
do we have-
September? It came out in September, so
Chat
I
room-
guess that's
chat room might
2.5
know.
months.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think chat room might know. I don't know the. I just keep thinking though, if they wait until do a summer release, we're gonna be in this patch for 8 to 10 months, which is a long time.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
I
that'll
feel
be
like that would
something.
force some players and possibly lose them. I think that's why they have been rushing it, or at least they
The-
are thinking about it.
Yeah, but the thing is, those people always kind of come back anyway. I mean, most of them come back to some extent. Like,
Yeah.
that's true.
even when they get bored, most people come back at some point. But yeah, they have to push to keep the subs up. But I don't know. It's a pretty hard question. But
think-
yeah, I definitely don't hope we have 10 months of.
No, they don't.
Yes.
They debunked the 5.5. There will be no 5.5 patch. There'll be a 6.0. Obviously, before the expansion drops, a couple weeks before it drops, but there's no 5.5. They've said there's no 5.5 multiple times. Pretty sure both Ghostcrawler and Zaram has retweeted that there's no 5.5. unless you have somewhere that re-debunked the debunk, but I'm pretty sure I read and heard that there's no 5.5 because they don't have the time for it. And it's a waste of time to make 5.5 and a filler content when they can just work on the next expansion. The Dark Below or whatever. 5.4.5? Okay, Flo. Okay, Flo, go get out of here. Get out of here, Flo. Get out of here with that ridiculously.
All right, so let's keep going on the questions. We have a number of questions, and I'm sure they'd love to be answered. Okay, we kind of talked about this, but we actually didn't talk about, what you two would actually be playing as your spec. So the next question is from Shizwix at Drainer EU. The question is, what spec will you be playing for progression? And as a follow-up, what stats will you be carrying for?
For who first?
I mean, well, let's start with you, Sparkuggz.
Like, this isn't part of the normal show, so just take it away.
I know,
Yeah.
but it's just
It doesn't really
say
matter.
it to someone so someone can go first.
Yeah, sure.
Anyways, about playing, as I said before, I'm gonna play whatever seems the best for progression. If we need something specific, I'm gonna change it. I mean, I always go into the fight and say, okay, this looks like the best. I can do a good boss damage with this. And in general, I have a thumb rule right now that says multi-target kind of seems like Demonology is still pretty good and depends still on the fight. And like single target, I kind of favor Affliction, and Destruction I kind of threw in the trash. So it's gonna be a bit about those two, I think, and it depends because they're still gonna balance it. If Demonology gets a boost, I think it will still be strong. I feel personally like it lacks single target DPS, where Shina doesn't think so. But the testings I've done and the raids we've done where we compared, I feel like Affliction is the single target spec right now.
Just real quick, yeah, the patch...
About stats.
Oh.
Okay,
Go ahead.
well, go.
No, so I was going to say the patch is on the 27th, by the way. 5.4 drops
Yeah.
the 27th of this month. Yeah. The next episode of the
Oh,
final...
That's like set in stone. I thought it was like the
If
earliest.
if they don't delay, they
They said if there's
do
no
the thing
delay.
where
The
they-
27th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
What I wanted to say about the stats is also that with the whole RPPM thing, where people think they get higher uptime with more haste and like noticeable, that's kind of thrown out of the window. I think Mastery will be like the strongest stat, which was already now, but we want to go more to Mastery than ever before. Things might change, like min-maxing between the specs, but the thing is, like, for example, you can't really go heavier into crit with like Demonology, because if you have to respec, you kind of need you need to find that, doing progression, you need to find that sweet balance of I can play 2-3 specs with a decent reforge without having to change everything, because on progression every minute counts.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Okay, so the patch is slated for the end of the season date, which is the 27th of this month. But with patches, there's always a chance it could be delayed. It will be released on the 27th if there is no delay, but that is when the season ends. Notoriously, however, patches do drop when seasons end. But there have been times where it has been delayed a week or two. So personally, I want it delayed. I want a little more time off because the stream schedule and Final Boss and my work is going to come back into play, where I'm working 15 to 16-hour days, 5 days a week, and I'm kind of enjoying the not having to do that right now. So,
Yeah,
whew.
definitely.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, their school's starting, and then also PAX is right around the corner, so a lot of people are going to be going to conventions.
I was thinking it was going to be after PAX, though, but it looks like they got to put it after Gamescom. But between two
Yeah.
conventions, I don't know. That feels kind of... Blizzard knows about this stuff. PAX is not a big deal. What? What?
Pretty big.
PAX is
It's like
huge.
the swag bag convention.
not
PAX
for
is-
Europeans.
Really
We don't even know about
Well,
it.
oh,
We
yeah,
do, but it's not important for us.
You get more time to raid than us anyway. That'll be an episode in the future, EU versus US. That'll be
You have a
fun.
head start. No, you have a head start. No, baby.
That we had that 6 hour, yeah, the 6 hour head start, yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a thing. Let's see. What we got? Did you answer your question? We have Skype questions too. There's a couple in Skype.
Yeah. Well, let's see. There's the third question. I think we can pretty much, like, after talking about it, I don't know if it's going to be redundant, but we might as well ask and just,
Yeah, go for it.
answer it quickly. Okay, so this is from Bacon Strip. I don't know which server or where, But
bacon
the question
strip.
is, do you think we'll see another tier with all 3 specs being played, or will 1 or 2 dominate?
I think that Affliction and Demonology are going to be much stronger than Destro for most fights this tier. I don't think that you're going to have people running around and going to their trainers, certainly, especially on progression. It's just not worth doing that. But from the PTR testing that we have gotten to do, I think those 2 specs are going to cover most of the fights. And, you know, each fight is going to either play to the strong points of one or another. Also, the good thing is that that's going to keep gearing pretty safely, where you're going to be able to gem into mastery and then just swap your reforge secondary priority between crit and haste depending on what your spec you're playing. And like Spark said, you want to make sure you're not wasting more time than you're gaining by trying to get the absolute min-max perfect for that spec if it's an easy fight where you don't need that.
Yep.
I love some of
Yeah.
Spark's answers. He's like, yep.
Well,
Well,
covered it.
straightforward.
I mean, we talked about it already, about destruction. Well, I mentioned it already. Destruction kind of seems like... Well, the thing is that they kind of nerfed it a bit with the whole Rain of Fire thing, and they haven't really done too much. Like, they haven't made it attractive in any way, and maybe they will, but until they do, it seems like Affliction, Demonology, you can find a good stat priority that works for both, and they kind of cover everything, because Demonology has the AoE. Affliction does have better AoE now because of the Manor's Fury, but they just line, like, Affliction and Demonology syncs well together. They can cover a lot of tasks where Destruction is kind of just on its own. It does some things good, but
Very
the 2
niche
others can do them.
dependent.
Yeah.
And if
very
you're
niche
out of that
dependent.
niche, it really falls behind. Whereas the other specs give you the options. They can do well in really any situation.
I don't think Sparks is bored. Are you bored, Spark?
No, it's just very late and
laid back. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, for you gotta remember,
Tired.
guys. He's
No, I'm
over
not
the-
even tired. It's just
Oh,
late,
okay.
and my eyes are
No.
like.
It's 12:30 for
Getting-
you right now, right?
It's not that late.
It's already-
Sko's
it's-
bedtime, but it's,
It's
not
already
my bedtime.
yeah, it's Sko's bedtime. It's already Monday for him. You remember, he's coming to us from Denmark, so there's a little bit of time difference there. So, Spark's the cutest girl on stream. I believe it.
Same.
Definitely isn't me. I am
Both have
an
more fun.
ugly girl. Worst lesbian ever.
Myself up. Yours.
So it's everything from this. There's another one. There's got some Scud questions here too.
Yeah, let me start with this one. This person's name, how do you say that? Natasha from US Bloodhoof. The question is, did you have a Warlock friend that you would either play or just talk to Warlocks, or talk about Warlocks with? Do multiple perspectives help you or hurt you? And could they contribute to you being a better player? Or vice versa? If either of you guys have like other Warlock friends.
I really love to talk to other Warlocks, because always talking with other people, you kind of either realize your own mistakes, or like, how do you say it, like you make your own points stronger because you bounce off ideas. I really love to talk to other Warlocks, but there's also a lot of, I don't know how to say, like dirty, annoying Warlocks out there that just are too arrogant and too much themselves. But I found quite some Warlocks I like to talk to that are nice people, and generally I have this attitude that if they're nice to me, I'm also nice to them, because I mean, why not? But the thing is, now Shina, for example, is in Blood Legion, so there's always that little rival, like, against each other. You don't want to really help each other, but then again, I mean, these days it doesn't matter that much, like. But it's really nice to talk to other people. Really, really nice.
I think for my part, I've not really been involved with the community so much. Just have a lot of stuff on my plate that I have to balance with raiding as it is. So it's sometimes a concern with time, but I do enjoy talking to other warlocks who are intelligent and have good knowledge of the class, because it's really, like Spark said, it's good to bounce ideas off them, and it's something where you can learn from other people who might approach with a different perspective and might have thought of something clever that you didn't, or something that you weren't sure if it was going to work, or didn't get a chance to test yourself. Maybe they did. So it's always great, because the more information you have, the more data you can use, the better your play will be. So
Mhm.
I also like looking at people's logs sometimes just to see what spells are being cast on what creatures at what times. It's just helpful.
Stalker.
Well, it's benefits
It
you.
works.
So
Yeah, I know.
yeah, if it works, that's good. So anything to make you better, and you can learn from I've been surprised at the kind of questions I've been asked sometimes by people wanting help, and I will say, that's a very good question. I don't know exactly what the answer is, but I will go research it now and then let you know and stuff
Yeah.
like that. It pushes me to get better at my class.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I was
I
gonna
have
bring.
that as well.
I was gonna bring that
Like,
up a little
when
bit.
people ask,
Oh, go ahead.
nah, I just said I have exactly the same thing. Like people ask you a lot of the times, and sometimes you're not even sure, and they ask you questions you didn't even think about, and you weren't sure about. You just assumed, and sometimes you find some new things. I mean, but it's
Yeah.
always better to work in teams and like bounce ideas. Because if you're all alone, you can always make mistakes,
Mhm.
and just don't be afraid to see your mistakes instead of just being like, this is how it is, and I'm right, and I'm always right. It's always good to be like open-minded and say, well, I was wrong on this one, but maybe another time I'm right on something.
Yeah, that's really good advice.
So, real quick from the chat room, how is the new Manaroth's Fury going to be incorporated into Mob next patch with the percentage damage buff on Seed of Corruption?
I don't
Anything?
personally like it. Like I don't like how they're doing the new talents, especially for some specs. Like Demonology, for example, it's not that important with Jaden's Cunning because we have a lot of movement spells, and Fatal Flame is pretty decent damage and stuff. But this whole thing about Manora's Fury just to burst some AoE, where AoE is not really like AoE is never really the thing where you wipe because you lag it, because you can always bring enough to handle it, and this talent just seems a bit padding to some extent, and I don't know. I just don't like the idea. And some guy might look better in numbers just because he uses this over a guy who plays more team play for the other things or something like that. I'm not a big fan of that in that way. And the thing that it does extra damage, but it has to do extra damage to even be attractive. But I
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
what Sheena thinks.
Well, I guess,
I-
on the same kind of note of talent changes, I mean, Archimonde's Vengeance, the rework for that, I think that's pretty big because I've never really been too tempted to I guess, use Archimonde's Vengeance as a talent, but, considering now that they're changing it so that Dark Soul has 2 charges for Archimonde's Darkness or whatever, how do you think that's going to be incorporated into the next patch?
I think it's originally with level 90 talents. We wanted to stay away from anything that would give a single target DPS on patchwork deep damage increase. That was actually something that was actively trying to be avoided, but I think after so many patches and raids, we've seen how the class performs, and we kind of want to go and have a talent like that now. And so now that's going to be the single target flat damage increase level 90 talents.
Yeah.
And so
Mm-hmm.
it's
I
not
like
as
that.
OP as it might sound because we're always going to be every spec is limited by its secondary resource system. We can only build those so fast. So having 2 sets of cooldowns isn't quite as retarded as it sounds just because we're limited. What use is a trinket going to be up for that? It's going to have enough secondary resources to make it really worthwhile. It's still going to be a good talent, but it's not as godly as you would think.
Yeah.
Trying to find a tweet that is lost in the nether now all of a sudden. Where did it go?
But yeah, also about the Dark Soul talent, if people don't know, it's because of how it recharges that you only get like 1 extra, and you can't have like, it doesn't work like Hand of Gul'dan recharges. It works a different way, so it just allows us to use like what the talent does overall is pretty much just allow us more to use Dark Soul when we want to and still give you a little extra. But I just don't like competing against like Kil'jaeden's Cunning and this AoE talent and the Archimonde's Vengeance. I don't really like the whole like battling each other out kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, KJ's is passive now, and that was important because always wanted to have a passive option so that if you wanted a little less complexity with the spec, you'll notice that throughout the entire talent tree. That's kind of a theme. That there's going to be one talent that's passive, and now that the KJ's is completely passive like that, there's that cooldown, damage cooldown on Mana Ross to make that an active talent instead of Kill Jade, since its active wasn't really working out so much.
Yeah, but I just think it's an issue as well that they, because it's also hard to kind of completely value when either is the better, and it might confuse people more. Like, when should I actually take this, and at what point, how much do I need to move to exactly be worth it to take this over that? I mean, it's also overcomplicating some things for like general people, I think.
And it's so dependent on play. Like, some people are just.
But it also kind of caters that the better you are placing yourself in movement, you will see more DPS on movement fights with the other talents compared to, another guy might see more DPS with Kill Jaden's Cunning because he doesn't know where to stand in line, where to place himself.
Yeah, or if the guild has a strategy that's absolutely horrible and they're not going to change it or whatever. So it's true, it's really a talent that's kind of there to. It's probably not going to get someone to use high ends compared to the other two.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. Wow.
But I think not every talent needs to be geared towards, the top 0.5% of players. So in a way, I don't think it's a bad thing for the class.
Yeah, we got a quick one real quick here, and I think we don't have. There's a quick one. I guess I got two quick ones real quick here before we get out of here. Let's go with this is towards the godfather of Warlocks, Spark. This is from Always54. He's a member of the Legion. And it says, can the godfather of Warlocks please explain the use of Soulfire in and out of the meta? I'm assuming the meta gem.
Metamorphosis.
Oh, Metamorphosis. Okay, Metamorphosis.
Yeah.
There you go. So Soulfire in and outside of Metamorphosis then. I'm terrible.
There's a lot of different opinions on this topic, but how I go about it is, it's one of the most reactionary things in the game because you kind of need to decide, like, what's my fury, how much fury do I have to spend, and when should I spend it. Like, I make myself thumb rules, like, if I have cooldowns up, I use Soulfire inside meta. If I have procs, I kind of try to use it. But you always need, that's what I love about Warlock, because you always need to predict what is going to happen in 20-30 seconds. You can't mechanically say that every time I have 751 fury, I'm going to pop my Soulfire and go ham. I mean, you just have to think, like, how is the fight looking? Do I have enough fury to spend on a few Soulfires? Do I need to dump some fury for Soulfires and stuff like that? And generally just use it together with other damage increasing abilities without starving yourself. That's how I mainly go about it. Then you're never completely wrong. Then there's people that tend to use it way more, like overuse it. And then there's people that don't use it at all. But generally you just need to think Touch of Chaos doesn't scale with haste. Soulfire scales with haste, which means every time we have some sort of haste up, Soulfire is always a good choice. Either drop out of meta or be inside meta with Soulfires. And it's one of the more complicated things about Warlock, and one of the main decision things we have to do is just when do we actually Soulfire. And just think about it, you want to burst, and you want to burst hard with your Fury, because there's downtime. I always say this, there's downtime and then there's burst time. And when you have downtime, you just cast Shadow Ball and sing a song for yourself, make a cup of coffee, drink a bit, and then it's time to go ham, and we go Metamorphosis, and then we pop the Soulfires. That's like a thumb rule you can never go wrong about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's important to keep in mind that if you have your Meta Gem proc up, it's actually more damage to do Soulfires with Molten Core out of meta than it is to spam Touch of Chaos. I'm not saying you should always spend them at that time, because you get a sense of how many Molten Core procs you're going to have access to and when you're going to need to use them. You obviously never want to be having 10 and sitting on that, because then any other ones you get are just not even going to count. But it's just something to keep in mind, that if you have a haste buff up, you're not really going to want to be hitting Touch of Chaos as much as it's humanly avoidable, because it's really a horrible spell with a lot of haste, because there's no haste scaling on it at all.
But it is one of the main questions, and that's where min-maxing comes in about when to Soulfire. But just make yourself some thumb rules, and just make sure that you never dry yourself out. Because what I see is then people say, oh, okay, so I just had breath proc, a trinket proc. Oh, then I'm gonna Soulfire, but they don't realize that in 20 seconds there's Dark Soul about to come off. So Dark Soul lined up with something else, might be better to just save a bit of Fury and just use a few Soulfires. And that's where I think some people overuse it too much, and some people don't even use it at all. So that's what I love about Warlock, and that's what I love about RPPM is there's so many situational things. Like, you can never do a perfect pool. There's not a perfect pool because there's always something you probably could have done better or min-maxed a bit better, and I really love that about Warlock, because I never sit after a fight and say, well, I played this perfect. Oh well, I don't. I always try to find ways I could improve, and that's why I really love RPPM. But I just hate the huge difference of the uptimes. If the uptime would be more stable, I would love RPPM. I wouldn't play the game without it, because it adds that flavor to it. It's like, how I say is it's like you're chasing a carrot, and at one point you get that carrot, and when you get that carrot, it's like an orgasm because it's just so fucking good. And that's also something fun, because it's not so mechanical. It's fun because you have something to strive for, and when it happens, you really get excited. Way more excited than you should be. And like, RPPM and Soulfires is also one thing that makes the spec really fun, and that's why I think most people enjoy Demonology when they really learn it.
I don't even know. There's so many quotable things from the show tonight. Jeez. All right, last one. Last one, real quick here. This is from L Live Lock. Actually sent a way to pronounce their name from US Kill Jaden. He's for Spark and Shinafae. Well, I hope so, because they're not going to ask me a question about Warlocks. I have no idea. I am currently a mage looking to level a Warlock and turn it into my main. What are some challenges I will have both logistically and mechanically while making the switch, again, from mage to Warlock? Who wants it first?
Well, it's you at least have the same role in a raid usually, in the sense that you are a caster DPS, and you'll be familiar with a lot of the gear, which is good, even if your stats priority might be different. But overall, you're gonna have to get used to using a pet and managing the pet. I know Frost has a bit of that,
Yeah.
so I suppose if you're playing Frost a lot, you've already got an idea of what's in store with having to make sure to send your pet on the right target, and if you're Demonology, using its False Storm at the right time and things of that nature. Then it's also generally a more complex class with most of the specs. There's much more to do in multi-target fights than there is even a Fire Mage. Playing with a Living Bomb, it's only a limit of 3 targets that you'd have to worry about, whereas with a Lock, especially if you're going to be playing Affliction, you're constantly swapping to as many targets as there are and making sure the dots are rolling on them. That's a bit different. Also, the target swapping capability is a lot weaker than a Mage, which kind of sucks if that's what you're going to be asked to do. You're going to want to you have really strong sustained DPS, but you're not going to be able to do those quick swaps to blow something up like you would if you're an Arcane Mage, so that's a little bit different. But I think overall it's probably going to be a swap you'd enjoy, because I have a Mage and play it too, and I find that I have a lot more fun on my Warlocks, because the fights there's always something different to do on every fight to optimize. You have so many options that how you approach a fight with 2 targets is totally different than how you might approach a fight with some AoE phase and some single target phase like Lei Shen, and it's the fun of figuring out what the best way to play each fight is and how to manage your resources to get the most out of the class for each fight. It's very entertaining to me and keeps the class interesting, even though it gets very repetitive and farm doing the same thing over and over. But I would say Warlock's a lot less boring in that sense.
And she killed it. Do you have anything to add, Spark? Yeah.
I wanted to add something as well. Like, I think most people when you play Warlock, you also need to put a lot of time into it. I think it's very time committed. I mean, if you don't enjoy having to study a lot behind like what's going on and what you should do, it's a very overwhelming class, I would say, to some extent, when you really want to min-max it. And also the whole multi-dotting thing, it can be very overwhelming. Like, it takes away a lot of your raid awareness and focus during raids, and like, I don't know if you noticed, but I don't think you ever find a Warlock who's like raid leading, because oftentimes you're fucking busy tracking everything and making sure everything. There's so much to it where you can probably enjoy raiding more with another class and like raid lead and talk more and like have more fun with the game itself, where I think Warlock is really one of those where you gotta like keep a straight face and and one fuck up and you're like out of this world, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
It's not a fun class to raid lead on. I concur with
Yeah,
this.
there's so much to track. There's so many small things
Yeah.
and switches, and I mean, people are like, oh, people generally like this in method, especially like Warlocks. Oh my God, you're not focusing or something. Like they kind of expect you can manage everything, and you just can't. There's too much to focus on. Like do all different kind of jobs. It just sucks as a Warlock. Like marking things and like putting things on the ground, being aware of everything. The rotation is just too requiring to pay attention all the time to some extent that it really hurts. I mean, even Sinan said it, he used to raid lead as a Warlock, and it sucks. It really sucks to like
Yeah.
have to go out of your way and just focus on your DPS. Whereas I know other classes you can enjoy more and like be more relaxed. And I think that like if you go to a Warlock, you always need to remember that. You need to remember that you're gonna focus a lot more on the DPS and the rotations and doing things correct. You want to min-max it,
Yeah.
and it's gonna take that away from it. And you have to do the effort to research things a lot as a Warlock.
Yeah.
And some people don't want to put in that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess for the logistics, it's gonna be a while until you're adequately geared. Like, I've been on my new Warlock for about 3 weeks now, almost. And, you know, even though I have relatively good trinkets, there's such a large gap between the quality of all my items and the fact that I've been desperately grabbing, you know, any gear I can scrape up. You know, it's going to be a while till I see damage that's comparable to my hunter. So, I mean, it's going to take time, and then the legendary quest is going to be additional things. So plan on being independent of the metagem and the cloak for a while. And that's just, you know, coming from someone who just switched over.
That's true, yeah. I wanted Janine to talk on that because she just went from Hunter to Warlock, so it's not Mage to Warlock, but still a class swap to Warlock, so that makes sense to me. Because I've been enhanced in Shaman since they came out for the Alliance in Burning Crusade, and I haven't looked back. So I have not a lot of knowledge of the other classes. I play some alts, but nothing to speak of that I have any great deal of knowledge, so... Yep. I don't know, is there anything else you guys saw in the chat that is worthy enough? Otherwise, I will let you guys get out of here. I know Riggs is streaming here in a little bit, doing a guild workshop, dilly-dally, over at rignaros.com. But, is there anything else pressing? We're good?
Not really.
No?
I don't think so.
We covered pretty much everything.
I know. I think
We covered a lot of things.
I hope we beat it into the ground well enough, but you guys are awesome. Thank you for all the mobs and minions and all the new folks that joined us here tonight. Make sure to follow the stream here, and then head over to finalboss.tv for all of the social networking stuff, and we will see you back again here. This was the post-show, if you just tuned in, where we just kind of hang out and talk. It's not scripted to any degree. It's not, you know, controlled by our show notes. It's just nonchalant, just hanging out with you guys, answering questions and stuff. We do that every week. There's a little bit of pre-show and there's a little bit of post-show if you're live, and then the whole show will be up on YouTube tomorrow, unless there's some reason why it shouldn't be, like last week. But just always technical difficulties. But you guys have a great night. Again, we'll see you here next Sunday. And from everyone here and all of our guests, oh, hi Sheena. We'll be heading out here, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Adios.
Bye-bye.
Finally, I can go play Hearthstone all night. Good night, guys. 1 second.